They're all on one level. We have a handicap accessible playground that our PTO put in last year at the cost of $210,000. It's wheelchair accessible, so not only can our children use it, but adults within the community or around southeastern Idaho who are in wheelchairs as well can come here and play with their own children.
We do have a student right now in our school that has braces, so she can walk, she's mobile, but she also has a wheelchair. And so what we do is I go into the classroom and work with the classroom teacher to find where will the child sit, where are the areas of access, how will the student put their books away. So if she can be mobile, then how far can she actually walk? And so we kind of look at all those different factors, decide where her placement will be in the classroom, how do we have to adjust the furniture for mobility issues. In certain circumstances we actually create little spaces for them so they don't have to go very far. It's kind of their area, their cubby.
Kids with attention disabilities need a lot of breaks. And so their teachers know about their disability and they give them frequent opportunities to jump up and down, to be really physical, to be kinesthetic. We make sure, we do have some students with ADHD, and they get in trouble just like everybody else, but their consequences might be a little bit different, because having them sit out of recess could ruin the rest of the day. And so sometimes their consequence might be physically doing something. Scrubbing some scuff marks off the floor might be more appropriate than having them completely sit out of recess, because they need to be moving. And that movement, the ability to let them move is a critical part of their day.
Okay, now students with attention disabilities are distracted usually by a lot of things. And so again, we go into the classroom and I work with teachers on how they can make it a little bit better for students, not so distracting the classroom. If they can have things on the walls, but not too much, because a lot of times students will look at what's on the walls and they need it for reference, but a lot of times these kids with attention disabilities get distracted by what's on the walls. So anything blingy or lots of colors or things that make a lot of noise, we try to reduce that in the classroom as much as possible. If we can't, then we give them an area that's a little more sterile. And so we'll sometimes bring in carols, those little study carols that the kids can be in, so they can kind of get away from that. They have a work station or area at a table with the class, but then they have kind of an area that they can go to get away from the distractions of what's going on in the classroom, the visual stuff that might be happening. And then we also try to give them quiet areas, because a lot of attention problems are coming from the noises that are around them. And the humming from the light sometimes bothers them, so sometimes we'll have to actually adjust the environment to take out lights. The new thing we tried this year with attention deficit is the ball chair. So we did take the ball chairs, we bought a set of 5 of them, put them in the classroom, so not only did the student with the disability get the ball chair, but others in the classroom were able to use the ball chair, so that it became just part of the classroom.
We have Braille signs throughout the building. We don't currently have a child here right now in our K-4 program that has a visual disability. I have had students in the past with that, and we just make sure that our Braille is appropriate, and that we work closely with the people from the School for the Deaf and Blind to provide the appropriate accommodations, Braille machines, teaching Braille, and provide all testing in that format. You can translate every single thing that you have written into a Braille format for students with visual disabilities if they're that low of sight. Otherwise, we just help them out with whatever accommodation they happen to need. If that means we blow up the font, usually a 28 size font would be appropriate for a child. That would be the smallest font they could have. And so you just get the teacher to send you everything digitally, and you just blow it up.
If the child's completely blind, then that's we do different things for them. I'll start with that one. If they're completely blind, we don't move the furniture. A lot of times classroom teachers will move it from time to time throughout the year. And once a child that's blind, or that's mostly blind, learns the layout of the classroom, we don't want to change it, because then they stumble into things and they've learned or memorized where the furniture is. And so that's the big thing with the environment for them, is just to keep things in place as much as possible. If they're partially blind, we've had some children who have just peripheral vision, and they can maneuver around the classroom well, but we try not to, again, even for them, move the furniture too much, or at least not their areas, so they can learn and memorize where things are.
Children with learning disabilities need lots of opportunities to do things over and over again. And so within the classroom, the teachers really do make sure that children with a learning disability have many ways to show how they know something, not just a one-size-fits-all. So if everyone is taking a test and that child, no matter how many times they take it, won't do well, you can say to the child, how can you show me what you know? And maybe they could act it out. Maybe they could just tell you orally. And so there's lots of different ways to help them feel successful. The key is to figure out if they know the information. And if they don't know it, to figure out how you can get it in there and how to have them make sense of it. So we use a lot of building scaffolding, background knowledge. Front loading is what we call it, where you prep them for everything in advance, kind of a pre-teaching model. And we make sure that they have every opportunity to be successful. We offer our students with speech disabilities an opportunity to test with a familiar listener. And so let's say they're taking the Idaho Reading Indicator, and the way they say the letter P is different than anybody else. Everyone else would mark it wrong. We make sure that there's someone in the room, a double rater basically, and two people are grading it, and then they compare it at the end. So that if the speech pathologist knows that this child always mispronounces one specific letter, then she can be in there and she can say, they really got that right. And so we use a double rater system. And then we're really careful about kids with speech delays or disabilities that have to give an oral presentation. That is a difficult thing for them, especially in front of all of their classmates. And so we just make sure that if they need to give that to a smaller group or just one teacher, that we provide that opportunity. We actually have several students in our school with that disability now, and we provide what's called an auditory trainer for them, an FM system, where they wear some sort of adapter either on their ear or on their Baha system that they use. A Baha system is a bone transmission of sound, and they wear a little transmitter, and then the teacher wears a microphone, and so that the sounds of the teacher's voice go right directly to the child's head, so they can't get their teacher out of their head. It's great. But we also make sure that we communicate really heavily with all of our children's parents to see, because they know them the best, and they've had them at home since the day they were born, and they really know what works for their kids. And so we really communicate heavily with their parents to see what it's going to take to help their child be successful. I know teachers tend to go a little overboard with making their classrooms cute. I think that's a typical thing. As an elementary teacher, that's very popular, and you'll step into any classroom and see that. For kids with special needs, sometimes that can be overstimulating. And we've made that mistake here. We had a little child that was in a self-contained classroom because her disability was rather severe, and we found a cute little carpet and thought, oh, we'll throw a carpet in there, won't that be cute? And it'll make the room seem more inviting. Well, that's for probably 99% of the population would have thought that was cute. For this particular child, it set her off. It was too much color, there was too many pictures on the carpet, and it was truly overstimulating for her. When she'd go in there, she would kind of freak out a little bit. And so we finally were doing some research and looking around. We found out that we were really causing that problem by putting in something that was just far too busy for her brain to be able to handle. So we took it out, and it's made her tantrums just significantly less. So you do have to worry about not overstimulating the environment, keeping it simple. And so if you had to choose, if your principal came to you and said, you can buy new furniture, what do you want? You probably should steer away from having one orange table, one red table, one blue table, one green table. Go with the gray tables with maybe the colors around the edge, just so it's subtle, so that the basic color of the tables is gray. And not put too much on your walls. It's really tempting to build word walls. That's all really stimulating, especially for a child with autism. So keeping it simple is probably the best advice.